Isn't it, it's interesting how every question, which are great questions, and every question is, can you help me be on a path and practice it? I mean, the yamas and niyamas are beautiful. I'll start there, but I want to come back and share with you, because I know you have a very good practice, but I also know that it was not through Ananda. So somebody help me remember. I want to share the super conscious living exercises with Martin. I want to come back to that. One day I had a very difficult, this is years ago now. Years ago means 8 years ago. I had a very difficult encounter with a long-standing, spiritually mature friend, brother, I would say brother on the path. But we got into a very painful situation. So we live in a community. I wasn't in my home in the community, but in somebody else's home. It was him and myself and somebody else there. And it's just interesting the way this works, but he was accusing me of being something dishonest about something that has been very dear to me, with some attachment about who I am. In other words, I think I do that thing well. I thought that was one of my accomplishments on the path for many years. And he was saying to me, not knowing consciously that it was a button, but it was really a button. And it was a very calm but painful argument. I kept saying to him, let me repeat back to you what you're telling me, and you tell me, do you really mean that? And I would say it, and he was sitting, and he would say, yes, that's exactly what I mean, just with that tone. And I remember I stood up, I wandered around a little bit. There was one other person watching this. In hindsight, it was a comedy, but it didn't feel like a comedy at the time. Anyway, we did that 3 times. And finally, I said to him, I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to talk with you. And I walked out, and I walked across the community to my own home, locked the door, which I never do. I could leave town for a month, the door's wide open, and went upstairs in my little 2-story condominium. Within 10 minutes, he's knocking at my door. And I'm upstairs saying, go away. I mean, can you imagine 2 adults doing this? But it was intense, and it was real in the moment. And he kept saying, please let me in. Please. I'm sorry. We need to talk. Please let me in. And for probably 20 minutes, I just ignored him. But he didn't go away. Ultimately, I went down. I let him in. We spoke for hours. This was a deeply disturbing experience for me. In the very end, right before he left, he said to me, so will you forgive me? Those words. And I looked at him and I said, of course I'll forgive you. What else could I do? And he left. And I knew I would forgive him, but I wasn't quite there yet. So, in terms of your question, I called my partner of 40 years, who lived in a separate home, who's a photographer, a lay photographer. I mean, it's not his profession, but he does it. And he's got several printers. And I said, print me out the biggest version of the yamas and niyamas that you can print and bring them to me. And then I called the staff here, and I said, I'm not coming to work this week. And I made like a campsite in my living room. I put those yamas and niyamas up on the wall. It's a true story. And I lived in the living room for 5 days and nights, reading those yamas and niyamas and everything I know about them, which probably like you is a fair amount. We teach them, we try and live them. But I opened books, I read about them, I looked. Where am I off? Where? What's going on right now? Now, when we perfect the yamas and niyamas, we're free. And that's a very high goal. But I looked at them every day, all day, consciously. And I can't tell you how much spiritual progress I made in that week. And I think when we are motivated with that kind of, I don't live in that space. That's the urgency that's being suggested to us. But I did for those 5 days. And I offer that as a practice. You know, living the yamas and niyamas, as I said, perfectly means spiritual freedom. It doesn't take us through the whole eightfold path. But, I mean, it wouldn't if you were looking at it on a graph. But we all know if we get the yamas and niyamas perfect, we can't get them, right? Patanjali said it's not a sequential path. It's very interactive. You can work on a yama or a niyama, but you're also working on asana. You're working on interiorizing. You have to do it that way. So by the time the yamas and niyamas are perfect, everything's perfect. So I would say just keep practicing like that, even when you're alone. And it's a great idea to keep them where you can look at them or highlight one for a week. This week I'm going to work on nonviolence. Next week I'll work on introspection. I mean, just whatever it is, but continually. It's not a 10-week project. It's a many lifetime project. And when we put something up that reminds us on this path, Swami Kriyananda has written these beautiful affirmations. They're called, a book of them. He's written more than the book. But the book is called Affirmations for Self-Healing. Self-healing means spiritual freedom. And they're just beautiful. So and we read one every Sunday here. And the goal, which I often forget, I imagine many people do, is to hear the affirmation. That's the affirmation for the week. So were we really paying this kind of attention, we would get that affirmation, maybe print it out, put it somewhere, everywhere, and just keep repeating it several times a day, all week, as much as we can, until we don't just know it, we become it. Because that's what we have to do with these spiritual practices. So everybody knows that for decades, I've had the one for energy. It's probably the one I needed the least of all these affirmations, but somehow it came to me up on my refrigerator. Within me lies the energy to accomplish all that I will to do. Behind my every act is God's infinite power. Well, that's a very powerful affirmation. An affirmation is a statement of truth. I have all the energy to do anything I need to do. The topic this week in Raja Yoga was energy. I just happened to give that talk this time. But the truth of that is so profound, meaning we are pure energy. We never get tired, ever. as soon as we realize the truth of that affirmation. Most of us don't live in it. We get tired, or we think we can't do something that we want to do. It's never truth. But we believe that because we're limited within ourselves. I'm saying this all to you because these are all tools for growing, expanding, moving into truth, which is what you're trying to do. You're doing it. You're actually doing it beautifully. And I would say something else. We have on this path, I don't do these very often anymore, but I love them, and we should, what are called super conscious living exercises. I always say they can look so silly to new people. Like, anyway, they can look silly without another analogy. Because, did they come from Swamiji or Master? Swamiji, yeah, that's what I thought. So the first one is, I'm not going to, somebody else can stand up and do it for me. Don't be embarrassed. But the first one is just simply, but not simply. These are affirmations of truth. Come over here, honey, so you're in the camera. In case this room isn't enough. You know, we do these, but every time I used to teach them, I would say, they look silly, but I would stand up and do them, and of course, in front of the room. But there are many, but the first one says, the affirmation is, I am awake and ready. And it looks like this. I am awake and ready. 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 Now, you try and stay sleepy or down or anything and stand up and do that. It's impossible. They're mutually exclusive. It transforms energy. We'll do one more. The affirmation is, and we can get these to you. As I said, they look silly, but they are not. They are anything but silly. The next one is, I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. I am positive, energetic, enthusiastic. One more. Positive, energetic, enthusiastic. Yeah. See, it makes you smile. Thank you. And it brings out the natural energy and enthusiasm. These are spiritual qualities. They're not just egoic human qualities. These are spiritual qualities that we're all aspiring to. So when you say, how do I bring it home? These are just suggestions. Put the yamas and niyamas up on your wall or up on your computer. The only reason I say wall is because we probably maybe still look at places on the wall more than our computer. Maybe not, but wherever you look, you do these superconscious living exercises, or at least repeat the affirmations. But it's important that you bring movement to it. It matters. Soon, and a lot of people tell me, this is so funny to me, people come to talk for counsel about trying to meditate deeper, better, more. And very often I hear, well, I can't meditate longer in the morning because I don't have time. And I say, well, what time do you wake up? And they'll say, whatever, 6, 7, 8. And I say, well, get up a half hour earlier. I mean, it's just, if you don't have time, make time. That's silly in some ways. And people tell me they're tired. Lakshmi's coming with something.
I just have copies of them.
Oh, great. Oh, the superconscious living. Thank you. Beautiful. And they're tired. And I challenge anybody, if you can not ignore the alarm clock, which is always amazing to me. Some people and some people in this very room sleep through their alarm clocks. And I just can't fathom that. But of course, I've just always been an early morning person. It's just easy for me, and I know it's not easy for everybody, and I think it's particularly not easy for Indians because Indians are having their dinner at 10 at night, so how can you be up at 5 in the morning? But anyway, if you can get out of the bed and then stand up and say, I am awake and ready. I am just a few times. You're awake and ready, and you can meditate better. But see, it's not just a physical state of wakefulness. It's energetically awake. It's tuning into the infinite source of energy that we are, that we live in. And as soon as we realize that we are energy, we realize within me lies the power to accomplish all that I will to do, everything you're talking about. But we're human, so we have these practices, and that's really what I'm sharing with you, a few of them. Does that answer your question? I forget the whole of the question, but...
It's been very helpful.
Good.